A new update for Project Zomboid's Build 42 Unstable branch has arrived as of August 4th, 2025, so today I'll be jumping into those patch notes and covering everything you need to know while cutting out all that extra waffle. As always, there will be a link to the full patch notes down in the description. Special thank you to War Thunder for sponsoring today's video. Now let's jump into those patch notes, starting off with the brand new additions. So first up, vertical 2 container objects are now separated and can be navigated simply by clicking the upper or lower half of their world model, which you can see demonstrated in the background footage. If you're interacting with a refrigerator, for example, the freezer is on the upper half and the fridge is on the lower half. I did notice, however, when interacting with a refrigerator during testing, because there are multiple different models for refrigerators, this doesn't always match up with the object model itself. I've made the developers aware of this one myself, and hopefully it should be a relatively easy fix. Perhaps the best feature to come to the in-game map for quite some time has been added in this update. We can now resize and rotate our annotations, removing the need for some mods that I'm sure many players will be used to from Build 41. Text annotations can now be stuck to the map rather than the default isometric perspective, and can now be duplicated, allowing for quick copy-paste operations when marking down which buildings you've already cleared on your loot runs. Lastly, for all of the new additions to the in-game map, Louisville now has all of its streets appropriately named. On top of that, you'll now see names on the map for various points of interest like the Crossroads Mall, for example, the towns like Muldraw or West Point, and even forests like Hog Wallow and Doe Valley. All in all, this has made the experience much more believable, and I'm sure it'll all go towards helping new players get more familiar with their surroundings. There has been a range of optimizations and performance improvements in this patch, including several to CPU and memory usage, so fingers crossed those of you on lower end rigs should see at least some improvements after this patch. Let me know in the comments if you're one of those people so we can see if this has actually had any effect for you. Rendering of image pyramids has also been optimized with a change to multi-threading that the developers hope will fix hanging when entering the game after loading in. And I will say, after testing this myself, I loaded into a game incredibly quickly with no freezes at all, so that's a very good sign that this is applied on a wide scale. The building menu now has an additional hotkey in the Keybinds menu, which is a great addition considering the crafting menu has had one for quite some time now. Keep in mind that this is unassigned by default, so you'll need to bind a key yourself if you want to use this feature. On the topic of keybinds, it's now possible to use Shift, Control, or Alt keys to modify your keybinds. So, for example, you could bind C to crouch, but you could also bind Shift C to opening the crafting menu. You can now obtain large amounts of bricks or gold bars from associated pallets by right-clicking on them. Just keep in mind that right now you won't be able to put these items back onto the pallet after removing them, so make sure you have enough inventory space and can get them where they need to go before you collect them. It's now possible to close the lid on an amphora or a rain collector barrel, but importantly this feature does not extend to rain collector crates. This means that in theory you could use these items to store vast amounts of clean water or other liquids while in an outside area without the fear of rain adding tainted water to the mix. So we've got a couple more new additions to cover in this update, but before that I want to say a very special thank you to today's sponsor, War Thunder, the most comprehensive vehicle combat game ever made, available for free on PC, consoles, and now mobile devices, so you can take the battlefield wherever you go with intuitive controls built for easy gameplay. With over 2,500 incredibly detailed tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships from 10 major nations across history, you'll always have something new to try. Perfectly paired with realistic graphics and authentic sound design, you'll feel as though you're actually in command of some of the most powerful war machines ever invented. Join over 95 million players in PvP battles today, and for a limited time only using my link in the description, new or returning players of a 6-month break or or more on PC or console will receive a massive bonus in the form of premium vehicles, an exclusive Eagle of Valor decoration, 100,000 silver lions, and a week of premium. All that said, let's get back to the remaining new additions in this update. Mannequins in Project Zomboid now have a functional purpose and can be used to manage outfits. You can either set up an outfit on the mannequin and simply swap your entire outfit with theirs, or you can add the mannequin's outfit on top of what you're currently wearing. I can see this being an incredibly useful feature for when a blizzard or a thunderstorm suddenly hits and you need a rain-resistant outfit to put on, or even to put on a set of combat-focused clothing just at the right moment that would otherwise make your character uncomfortable if it was worn over long periods of time. An entire range of new sound effects have been added in this update, such as a distinctive sound for when zombies are scratching on a surface rather than banging against them. Other sound effects have been added surrounding antique stoves and other cooking containers, wooden drawers being opened, items being transferred from mannequins, and more. You can even whisper through a megaphone now, in case you wanted to do that for some unknown reason. Now, I've been a pretty big advocate for change to the current crafting interface with an eye towards making it easier to understand and use. There have been a few changes to crafting and recipes in this patch, but I'm going to focus on just a couple that I think will have the biggest impact. You can now right-click any item and see which recipes that item is used in. This is going to be an incredibly useful feature for working out whether an item is worth picking up for later use or leaving behind. This only works for the crafting menu right now though, and not the building menu, so fingers crossed that gets added later. You can do a similar thing with recipe magazines now, viewing one of the recipes the magazine will teach by right-clicking on it, then selecting the recipe of your choice. Now, this section is quite short in this update, but there are some really meaningful changes in here that I do want to cover. Firstly, butcher hooks will now require a large hook item to craft. This means there's another item you'll want to be on the lookout for when out on your loot runs. And while I know some players won't be too happy about this change, I do think that it makes sense that this crafting bench is made more of a mid to late game craft, considering it directly impacts the amount of meat and usable products you get from an animal's carcass. On a very similar note, the pottery wheel now requires 2 stone wheels to make, 1 in each size. There's been a few changes when it comes to animals, leather, and drying operations. Firstly, small animals can now be killed without the use of a weapon when held by the player. This applies to chickens, rabbits, rats, and baby turkeys, to name just a few. The aim of this change was to make it easier to kill animals caught in traps that would later be used for consumption. When it comes to drying leather you harvest from animals, it will now take 7 in-game days to dry a piece of leather completely, whereas previously this was done with a timed action at the bench itself. This also applies to drying herbs, which now take 1 in-game day to complete. I would maybe like to see more than 1 item being applied to the rack at a time when it comes to herbs. Drying 1 at a time seems a bit tedious to me, so we'll see if that changes over time in the future. There is now an increased chance to find clay around lakes, which should make pottery much easier to engage with if that's something you're interested in. Lastly, there's been a myriad of adjustments when it comes to fall damage. The list is appearing on your screens now, but essentially it should mean that there's a bit of variation in the results when falling from a decent height, and at the same time, you won't be guaranteed to get a severe fracture if you're only falling from a 1st or 2nd floor. Okay, so we're on to the last section of the video for today, and most of you already know what's coming by now, and that is the list of fixes. Once again, there is an absolute boatload of stuff in this section, so I won't be covering every single item, just the ones I think most players will want to know. Just another reminder that you can find a link to the full patch notes in the description. Starting off, we have a couple of fixes to building and the building menu. Barricades will no longer cancel their timed action if a door is opened while while barricading, and if a build action is bugged, the build menu will no longer be rendered entirely unusable like it was previously when something broke. Several fixes to fishing mechanics have been issued in this update as well, including hunger values for fish, fixes to errors when a fishing line snaps, and a fix to the new reeling mechanic, ensuring that this now functions as it's intended to. Now, this one is an important one. There have been some more fixes to melee combat that I think are worth knowing about. Firstly, a fix has been issued for cases where the character will attempt to stomp on a downed zombie too early, causing them to miss since the zombie hasn't yet hit the ground. There's also been a fix to some duplicated hit reaction animations, and some instances where zombies would incorrectly stagger backwards and fall when they have already started to do so. Most importantly of all these fixes, however, is that the glorious Spiffo statue will no longer break when you attempt to move it, meaning you can once again build the ultimate shrine to the almighty raccoon. Not that I've done that, obviously. There are, of course, a bunch of other crafting related fixes in this one, but to be honest, they are fairly minimal in the grand scheme of things, and you likely didn't even realize they were a thing unless you had been interacting with some very specific parts of the new crafting system, so I won't be covering them in this video. So that'll be it from me for today, but if you're a fan of Project Zomboid and want to keep up to date with all of the latest news, make sure to subscribe to the channel because I cover every single one of these patches and written development updates when they're released. Special thank you again to War Thunder for sponsoring today's video, which you can play for free on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, or on your mobile. Using my link in the description, new and returning players on break for 6 months or more on PC or console can grab a huge bonus pack including vehicles, silver lions, and 7 days of premium account time. Thanks for watching, folks, and I will see you all in the next one.